What's up, golf sickos? Welcome back to the show. It's Memorial Day. I'm joined by, ready for this one? I'm joined by my content caddy.
Hey, I like that.
A lot of talk recently about caddies. Ben Boscovich. Ben, how have you served this great nation on Memorial Day? What would you say is your number one contribution to this great nation?
I would say, one day about 7, 6, 8 months ago, I met up with my friend at the mall, and I said, we should do a live golf show every Monday.
Let's do it live.
Here we are.
My
greatest contribution to this nation.
That's your greatest contribution to this nation. That was going to be mine too. I think there's a lot of people who like golf, and we're serving them on this show.
That's all we can do.
Quiet-ish week in golf, at least on the PGA Tour. Ben Griffin got the job done at the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial, so it wasn't pretty. He had a 5-shot lead at one point. He started the day eagle birdie and then played the remaining 16 holes in 4 over par without a birdie. So it was a little bit of a slow bleed. He left the door open many, many times. It reminded me of Brian Harman's win at the Valero. I'm watching the PGA Tour more closely than I've ever watched the PGA Tour this year, just doing the watch-alongs and stuff. So I remember like every second of every win. It reminded me a lot of Brian Harman at Valero. Probably no one's ever said that. This day reminds me a lot of Brian Harman beating Andrew Novak at the Valero. It's a sicko statement, but Matty Schmid was the guy who was there, and he kept on not taking advantage. He bogeyed 13, 14, 17. He was 2 shots down going to 18, and Ben Griffin hits it in the right rough, and Schmid finds the fairway, so he can play first. And you're thinking, okay, he hits this close. He makes Ben Griffin have to make a par to beat him, but he doesn't hit it close. He hits it long of the green, almost in the water, and then shit got really interesting. Here's the watch-along clip of us reacting to the action on the 18th hole.
Do something special here, bud. Do something special here. Hole it out. Oh, he's done an amazing job. He's done it. He's done it. Matty Schmid has holed out from long of 18. Oh, my goodness. Oh, where's that been all day? And all of a sudden, Ben Griffin's 4.5-footer. He's smiling. He's not smiling. Inside, he's like, oh, my God, are you kidding me? That 4.5-footer just got a lot longer and a lot harder to win his second PGA Tour event, but his first on his own ball. We got a great worm cam here. Worm cam, thank you. And he's got it right in the middle. Okay, Matty Schmid. What an electric 45 seconds that was. Ends up an up and down from Ben Griffin. He had 3 on the back 9 to save par to edge Matty Schmid. He's a 2-time winner, and you better believe those bells you're hearing in the background, those are Ryder Cup bells for Ben Griffin.
Yeah, they're ringing. He's up in the top 25 in the world for the first time. He gets a second PGA Tour win in about a month, first on his own ball. He won with Andrew Novak at the Zurich a couple weeks back. And all this talk, I saw, who Joe Pompliano is? Mm-hmm. He's like a sports business guy. So it's sort of my barometer for did a golf story break through. And Joe Pompliano was tweeting about Ben Griffin's loan officer stint. And I wanted to get to the full story from the horse's mouth because, these networks, when they get wind of a golfer who maybe spent a little time doing something else, they pounce on it.
Oh, yeah.
Like Jake Knapp, was a nightclub bouncer who apparently just decided one day that he wanted to play on the PGA Tour despite being a really good college golfer at UCLA. Same thing for Ben Griffin. He was an All-American at UNC. So I caught up with him afterwards. Sneaky, a really, really great winner's interview, and I asked him about what's the real Ben Griffin story. Here's me and the newest winner on the PGA Tour, Ben Griffin.
All right, we're joined by Ben Griffin. We're joined again by Ben Griffin. Wasn't that long ago you were on here alongside Mr. Novak? You guys were wearing belts that day. You're wearing a different garment today. How would you compare the emotions of winning today by yourself versus a couple weeks ago with Andrew?
I'd say they're pretty similar, honestly. It's really hard to win on the PGA Tour, whether it's a team tournament or an individual event. I mean, they're still the same. I'd say I was arguably more nervous down the stretch at Zurich than I was today. That win at Zurich was huge for both of us in our careers, and I think it kind of got the monkey off the back for both of us. And I wouldn't be shocked if Andrew wins as soon as maybe even next week. We're both very, very confident golfers and both been playing really well. And it's a great feeling right now to, at least have an individual win on top of the Zurich, because a lot of people, it is a PGA Tour event. I mean, it's extremely hard to win, but people do maybe discredit it a touch since it's not an individual one. But yeah, I felt very good with my game, and was very, very proud of the way I fought individually to get this one.
Yeah, well, you said like a month ago on our show that you were looking forward to getting your first one, and you clipped Andrew on the battle there, but I'm sure it won't be long until he gets his. On the 72nd hole on 18, Matty chips in. you kind of smiled and laughed, but that you couldn't have found that funny or amusing. What was going through your head when you saw that one hit the bottom?
No, I mean, I did. As a competitor, like, you know, it's pretty cool. Like, yes, I don't want him to chip in, but it's pretty cool moments like that. You know, that was really, really cool. I mean, I'm just glad I only had 3 feet 11 inches to finish it off. Granted, that is kind of a testy range, but no, Ricky's putt was on the same line as mine, so I knew it just slid a little right, and I just had to trust it. But yeah, that was a crazy dramatic finish. It's weird being like in there in the moment on the green when it's happening, but I'm just glad I was able to have such a short look and step up in there confidently and knock it in.
You've always been super honest, so I want to ask you this question. Did you have one eye towards Scotty today? Like, were you looking a little close at the name Scheffler on the leaderboard?
No, I was actually looking yesterday. I was playing really well yesterday, and I remember being at one point in the round, and I saw I was maybe 13 and he was 7, and I was like, all right, Scotty's probably shooting 10 under tomorrow, so I need to make sure I'm at least 17 under, so I need to keep the pedal down. I don't know what he ended up shooting today, but he's always, it's kind of, we're living in a little bit of a Tiger era with Scotty. I mean, he's so dominant, and you can never put anything past him. It could be the hardest holes in golf, and he's going to find a way to make have a birdie look. And so I was fortunate not to see his name up there, but I would not have been shocked for a moment if his name was at 12 or 13 or 14 under, and I was chasing with a few holes to go.
You talked about an unexpected perk of winning, which was the retirement stuff. You know, you're going to keep your tour card now, your options vest. It's a bunch of words that I don't necessarily understand. You're now a 2-time winner this year. You're in the top 25 in the world. What does your mind go to now?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of hard work has been kind of validated. And I just continue to make strides in professional golf that I intended on doing. You know, going into this season, I was thinking along the same lines of my previous years of, all right, let's just try to break through and get our first win. And something mentally, you know, maybe it's my team. I've been training really hard, working on ball speed numbers, getting faster, feeling stronger. You know, there's a lot of things that I've been doing to try to make myself more of an elite golfer. Being 50 to 60 on the PGA Tour is definitely good. But I kind of, the last couple months, I was basically like, I'm good enough. I'm going to prove this soon. And now after getting the first win, it's like, all right, now I know I can win. I can do this again. Got in the mix of the PGA, won here. I just feel like I'm making good strides in professional golf, and I believe I'm an elite golfer. I believe I'm one of the best, and I just got to keep the pedal down and keep proving it to the world.
My last question for you. So you won, you won for the first time. Now it's making all the rounds on social media, this loan officer thing again. And I had this conversation with Jake Knapp on a video we did, and he was like, they made it sound like I was just some guy who was, at a nightclub. I decided I'm going to pick up golf and I'm going to become a professional golfer. Can we give the definitive answer on were you actually done? Was it just a stopgap? Just so everybody who's now new to the Ben Griffin story can hear it from the horse's mouth.
My friends at home give me so much crap. They tell me I was a mortgage loan officer.
You were an All-American at UNC. I feel like I'm taking crazy
based on social media. Yeah, social media makes it seem like I was destined to be a loan officer, and then all of a sudden I got pulled into professional golf. No, I mean, I had success against some of the best players in the world today, back in junior golf and in college. It's just the landscape of professional golf is very, very difficult. The line is very thin in golf as opposed to other sports. And before PGA Tour everyone started at scratch when you turn professional. You go and play many tours, international tours, whatever. But yeah, I just had financial strain. I was in the hole $17,000, I think is what my Amex card was in the hole at. I had no money. I was asking my parents for money. And this was 2021, so 1 year into COVID. I was playing many tours, but I couldn't pay rent. I mean, my dad was paying my rent. And so I stepped away. It wasn't a long time. I stopped playing in end of March, beginning of April of 2021, and I was back to golf in August. So what is that, 5 months? I didn't touch a club very much in those 5 months, maybe 3 times. Played with a realtor once. but it was enough of a reset for me to, first of all, this wouldn't be possible without Lord Abbott. The CEO, Doug Sig, is the one who financially stepped up and said, "You're good enough to play professional golf. I'm going to get you back, and you're going to be a PGA Tour winner and all this stuff." And he's a part of this entire journey. He's the reason I'm playing professional golf, because I actually would still be a loan officer. Maybe I wouldn't be a loan officer, but I would still be working. Without his backing, him putting up $125,000 for me to play professional golf for 2 years and cover all my expenses, so I didn't have to ask my parents for anything. When that happened, I realized I have this incredible opportunity that most people never get in their lives. I have to take advantage of it. I have to do the right things. I have to cut alcohol. I was drinking a little bit more back then. Cut alcohol out. Just focus on being a top professional golfer. And I got on the Korn Ferry Tour, got on the PGA Tour, and flash forward a couple years, and here we are, 2-time winner. So it's a cool journey. I was not out of golf for very long, but it was there's a lot of people that I have to thank that it brought me back to golf and have created this story for me.
Amazing stuff,
Yep.
man. I will see you at the U.S. Open. It's been fun watching these last couple months. Keep it going.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. See you there.
That's why people don't give up.
Yeah.
That's why there's, you go to a Korn Ferry event or even a PGA Tour. First of all, there's a bunch of flies in this thing.
Get to know some.
I was noticing them big time in the
They're just
beginning.
our live guests.
They're just that's our live audience. There are a couple of house flies. I count 2, but they are hanging out. But that's why what I was saying was, you go to a Korn Ferry event, you go to a PGA Tour Americas event, there's guys who are 29 and 32. And the reason is because of stories like Ben Griffin's, where you're grinding, boom, there's a breakthrough. And now Ben Griffin's made $2 million in his last month, and he's legitimately in the Ryder Cup conversation.
I like that conversation a lot, because it reminds you that we talk a lot about the line, and he even brought it up, the 100th best golfer in the world is a sick golfer,
Sick,
unbelievable,
dude,
right?
nasty.
But it makes you wonder too about the guys that are in the top 50 that end up, he's in the top 25 now. You said he has that mentality that I could be in the top 5. I could be number 2 in the world. I could be number 1 in the world. Even as a guy that we would never give him that mentality. We'd never be you're never going to make it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely Andrew Novak is another good example of a guy who, was sort of clinging for his card, and then they have a breakthrough. So yeah, Ben Griffin officially in the Ryder Cup conversation, as I mentioned. He's up to number 13 in the points, 2 wins. He also finished tied for 8th in the PGA Championship. So a really good stretch for him. Andrew Novak has also moved up a spot to number 8 in the Ryder Cup points after a T11. I would say that Ben Griffin, Andrew Novak, and Ryo Hisatsune, those are the big 3 when it comes to non-signature events.
They've been mainstays.
Valero, Valspar, Colonial. You're going to see a Ben Griffin. You're going to see an Andrew Novak, and you're probably going to see a Ryo Hisatsune.
I want to see a Ryo win. That'd be great.
Yeah. One more note. Scotty Scheffler, it felt like he kind of barely even played and finished tied for 4th. He went to the Stars game. I saw someone say he only played 9 holes in practice for the week. Super loose all week. Tied for 4th. He's playing Memorial this week, but who's not playing Memorial this week is Rory McIlroy. Skipping it for the first time in a while. Maybe he's too disgusted by Man United's performance. He went all the way to Bilbao to see us lose 1-0 to Spurs in a cup final. Okay, we are going to move into a little segment that's not so little. We call it the Knockaround, presented by Knockaround. I got new ones, Ben.
Oh, I like
these. These are the panoramas. These are the panoramas in the au revoir colorway.
Au revoir.
I'm loving these. I feel like all the shapes, all the designs that all the crazy expensive companies come out with, Knockaround has some just as good and 1/10 of the price. These sunglasses are $35. They're incredible quality. I've got so many Knockarounds now. They've come with me all over on tour. And we got a promo code. So if you go to Dan on Golf, you're watching Dan on Golf. If you go to knockaround.com and use the promo code DanOnGolf20, it's 20% off your first order. These become under $30. They're a fantastic product. LIV Duels. So there are more Duels competitions that will air around LIV's events, starting in Virginia in a couple weeks, the UK, Dallas, Chicago later this summer. LIV players competing in the new round of Duels include Bryson DeChambeau, who did not play in the first one, which led to a lot of speculation about why is the YouTube guy not playing in the big YouTube tournament. He's playing in this one. John Rahm, who's been making the rounds on YouTube. He's done Bob Does Sports. He's done Grant Horvat's channel. He's done stuff with the Bryan brothers. Phil is playing, Henrik Stenson. The creators competing will include Grant Horvat, George and Wes Bryan, Fat Perez, and Rick Shields. So Wes is suspended from the PGA Tour. This probably won't make that reinstatement process any easier. This one's actually going to air on the Bryan Bros YouTube channel. LIV Duels on the Bryan Bros YouTube channel. And I'm going to hit the honesty button right here. Okay, you ready, guys? Here's the honesty button. I kind of feel like Wesley Bryan, and this is not based on any like reporting or insight. I feel like he's going to play. They're going to give him a spot in LIV next year.
That's interesting.
It just makes too much sense. He wants to. He likes content creation just as much as playing. If he goes to LIV, he knows what his schedule is. It's 14 events. They'll let him film whatever he wants. He doesn't have to worry about where he is and what events he gets into and priority ranking. There's clearly a relationship there. It almost makes too much sense. It would allow him to be. And it's also just like a narrative fuck you from LIV Golf, being like, oh, the PGA Tour has this unicorn in the sport who's, you know, half tour player, half content creator. We're gonna take him. And it just seems, again, this is not based, I haven't spoken to Wes about this. I don't know anything beyond what's publicly available. It just seems to me like he's suspended by the tour. Now he's having the event on his channel. So it's not just that he's playing in the event. There's money involved there. Like, that is a business decision. It seems like it makes too much sense.
It's like the first, maybe, I don't know if it's first time, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a new scenario where like somebody gets kind of ousted from the main tour and they're like, oh yeah, there's this other thing I can pursue. And there's a ton of money waiting there for him.
And there's no rules, right? Like, you know, does he go on a team? Maybe they can give him an individual spot, like what they did with Anthony Kim. Like, it makes a lot of sense for me. Again, I don't know anything, but I just feel like we're moving in that direction.
I think it's good speculation that could be the next move for LIV as we hear about, like, oh, what are the contracts going to look like as they renew? Like, maybe they're going to go after creators next. They're all just sitting there with all.
Well, I mean, I think it would be a little bit damaging to the brand if they like gave Grant Horvat like a permanent spot in the league, because like he's never even played a tour event. But Wesley has won on the PGA Tour. He finished like 130th or whatever. Like, he's good enough to play. He's better than a lot of players who are on that tour right now.
Yeah, exactly. You see where they stack up against, like, do they become middle of the pack against?
It just seems completely. I'm not going to say inevitable, but it seems like we're moving in that direction.
I was going to say inevitable, yeah.
Speaking of inevitable, Angel Cabrera on the Champions Tour, he won the Senior PGA Championship at Congressional. By the way, Congressional looked amazing.
Yeah.
That was my first. I've played it since the redo. They did a big renovation. Andrew Green, I believe, took out a ton of the trees. They changed the really famous short par 3 10th hole. They moved it like on the other side of the water. This was my first time. I loved it when I played it. It's my first time seeing it on TV. It was awesome. It was awesome. And it was nice to know that the PGA of America, after Quail Hollow, no disrespect to Quail Hollow, great PGA Tour venue. Great PGA Tour. That's my official statement on Quail Hollow. Great PGA Tour venue. I'm excited to watch the Congressional in a couple years when I host the PGA. But he was walking up 18 with a 2-shot lead. He hit his tee shot right down the middle, lit up a cigarette, battling Padraig Harrington, just straight out of 2007 Oakmont playbook. You know what I mean?
Battling the guy that's been like kicking ass until he got out of jail.
So he's won majors 2 weeks in a row. He won the Regents Tradition last week. Actually finished on Monday, so he actually won 2 senior majors in a span of 6 days. And he's won 3 times on the Champions Tour since getting out of prison. For really bad stuff. I want to make that like super, super clear. I'm not here saying, you know, there's the old that winning solves everything. Winning doesn't solve absolutely. It doesn't. There's degrees to things that winning doesn't solve. But it is absolutely.
There's also things that like serving your time doesn't necessarily solve.
Yeah.
Things he did, like he did his time, but I don't think they're like that forgivable.
Right. And like 2 things can be true. Like, should he be eligible to play? Yeah. I mean, he did his time. Augusta invited him back to the Masters. He served about as hard a time as you could serve.
But do we erase our memory?
But do we say that this guy's a GOAT and this guy is no? But I will say. It did remind me of, like, he was a little bit of a villain even back in the day before all of this, because he beat Tiger at Oakmont, and he almost ruined Adam Scott's Masters with an all-time if you guys haven't watched 2013 Masters, Adam Scott is literally like celebrating in the pouring rain on 18, and Angel Cabrera is still in the fairway and he needs to make a birdie for a playoff, and it's pouring rain, and they're making so much noise, all the Australians, that he has to step off his ball, and he says, "Quiet, please," in like broken English, and then he hits a 9-iron, and he goes, "Vuele, vuele," which means fly, fly, go, and it goes to this far, and he taps in for. It was one of the most badass 72nd hole. So he had a little bit of villain energy, and then again, he beat Tiger at Oakmont in 2007, and it just reminded
Y.E. Yanger in like an exclusive club together.
It just reminded me big time of like Angel in his glory days. This guy won 2 majors and you know, lost in a playoff for a third. So.
And he's taking it to the giants of the league that he's playing in, right? Like Padraig and Ernie Els, DJ, they're like
They're established.
They're out there.
They're established out there. Another guy who's established. I'm gonna hit the honesty button again. Second time already. Here we go. I am very concerned about Will Zalatoris.
Yeah.
So I believe this is his third back surgery. This dropped this morning. This was a statement. This spring, I started feeling some discomfort, instability in my back that progressively got worse. Those are two words that are not good. Discomfort means pain, and instability. I did a disc in my back in September, and I know exactly what it means by instability. It feels like there's nothing there. It feels like every time you take a step, you feel like pain going down your leg. It feels like there's nothing to plant on. Following the PGA Championship, an MRI showed that I re-herniated 2 discs. Another word I don't like. Re-herniated means
bad.
it's the same ones. After discussing the options with my medical team, I underwent surgery this past Friday with Dr. Michael Duffy at the Texas Back Institute. It says he'll be back in the fall, but multiple back surgeries, multiple discs re-herniated. It's a persistent issue. He's 28 years old. I'm concerned.
I'm concerned too. Like, what do you and I get paid to talk about this, not like work on people's backs, but like,
I've got a little bit of knowledge in the herniated disc.
You do, yeah,
yes.
actually. So do you do a game change from that? Like, does he need to adjust the way he swings, the way he plays? To
Well, I think it's more about his body. The short answer is yes. He already has made changes to get rid of a little bit of side bend in his swing. We do this a lot on this show. He's one of these guys. It just puts a lot of stress, especially if you have like. It sounds like he might. I don't know this, but it sounds like he might have like a degenerative back discs, which is what I have, which is it's called like stenosis. Again, I don't know this for a fact, but. You don't want side bend, that's the enemy, and then you want to put on a lot of muscle. And that's what he did. He has. He put on like 15 to 20 pounds. Basically, like what I did to get my disc is like you basically build a cushion around your back. So you work a lot on the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, and the back muscles to take as much stress off as you can. And I'm sure he's done that. But the thing about backs is like you can do everything right, and if the disc is degenerative, there's almost like nothing you can do.
Yeah, the margin margin of error is very small. Like
it's not even margin of error. Like you can do the right exercises, you can change your swing the right way, and if the disc is the disc, and it's what's the word? Genetic.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
It's thinking about like the move for pros right now is like chase speed. Like we just talked about bomb and gouge at Quail Hollow 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like can he not chase speed the way that these other guys can?
Yeah, no, I don't think he can. I don't think he can push his body to that sort of extreme. I don't think he can hit, the speed training, a big part of it is like conditioning your body to be comfortable with the new normal.
Yeah.
So it's not just like you go out there and hit a couple, you have to hit like 80 balls as hard as you can. Like that's a speed training session.
Right.
And I don't think he can do that.
So he's going to be trying to play that Tom Kim game now if he wants to. That's what I'm saying. You change the way you play golf like forever. You're like, okay, if I'm going to like win 4 tournaments before the time I retire, like I have to do it this way now, not like the way I want to.
It's all of these very difficult questions are being asked. I'm sure it's not a fun one. Well, it was a fun one. Joel Damon had a hole-in-one. Let's watch that clip.
Great shirt.
You like that shirt? You like the yellow. Is that yellow?
Some guys can do it. Yeah, it's neon.
Come on down. Come on down. It's tracking. It's tracking. Right in the middle.
Love a ripper.
He managed to miss the cut after this. Well, he said that himself. He said, I managed to shoot $1 million over after this. But there's Joel and Gino. Nice hug for them. And then there was a bit of a Venmo situation. I think some people wanted some payouts. Yeah, Colt Knost wanted 5. It was my fourth hole of the week, says Joel Damon. I managed to shoot $1 million over after that. So that's what he said. The bar tab was very light, except for Colt Knost. He wanted $5,000. He wanted $5,000. I support it.
In there, Colt.
The whole like guys having public Venmo's got to sort that out. Because like you'll see sometimes like a guy will miss a putt, and then all these assholes who bet on him to like finish top 10, they'll Venmo request them.
Oh my God, imagine.
They gotta have like a private. Maybe they already do, but they gotta have like a private function.
Venmo for public figures.
Yeah. Okay. LPGA was down in Mexico at Mayakoba. I've been there, lovely resort. It was won by Chisato Iwai. She won by 7 shots. A month ago, she got a slow play penalty in Utah at the Black Desert golf course. She missed the playoff by 2 shots, and that was a 2-shot penalty. Still never happened on the PGA Tour. Another great trophy. Another great trophy. That golf course is called El Camaleon.
Oh, we're on a streak right now, trophies. That's 3 weeks in a row.
We're on a really hot streak. So congratulations to her. The Corn Ferry Tour was won this week. The Corn Ferry event was won by 27-year-old from Sweden, Pontus Nyholm. And Pontus is just such a strong name that my son could never pull off. That's Pontus. That is a name. It sounds like a Roman emperor.
Yeah, Pontius Pilate.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, because it was a.
Or Chris Pontius.
Was Pontius Pilate Pontius Pilate was a bad guy, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah.
I have that in my name.
I haven't read the good book in a minute.
Is he the one who sold out Jesus?
The betrayer, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not a fan of that guy, but the name Pontus, like if society didn't exist and I could just name my son whatever I wanted to name him, I might name him Pontus.
Yeah, Pontus sounds like a giant, big, like philosopher.
Just Pontus.
Just strong.
Pontus rap, P-rap.
P-rap.
But it's not going to happen. He just can't pull it off. On the DP World Tour, the Sudal Open in Belgium was won by Christopher Reitan from Norway. The Scandinavian invasion continues. We've seen this recently. You know, we've got Victor Hovland, you've got Ludwig Åberg, you've got the not Højlund, that's the Man United player, he's terrible. Højgaard twins from Denmark, you've got Rasmus Njergaard Petersen. The Scandinavian, you don't think of, you wouldn't think of Sweden, Norway, as golf, Denmark as golf countries, but they are.
If you do think about it though, like all places historically that are great to live, like good life, people that live there, they're happy.
Disposable income.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that all lends itself pretty well to like, if you're mentally clear and rich.
And you know what? I think probably the simulator, the progression of simulators has probably been a really good thing for Scandinavia. Yeah. It's a short season, so the better those simulators get, the more we'll see. That was over on the DP World Tour. Speaking of the DP World Tour, the Rory Worldwide Tour continues. So we talked about last week on the show that he announced that he will be playing the Australian Open in December. He's going to play the India Championship. It's a new tournament. He announced that he's going to play later this year. And Rory's on the National Open diet. So shout out to Sean Zock from Golf Magazine for putting together this list of his tournaments that are coming up. So he's playing the Canadian Open, which is a national open. Then he's playing the US Open, which is obviously a national open. He's playing Travelers, Scottish Open, Open Championship. So that's 4 national opens in his next 5 starts. Then he's got the FedEx Cup playoffs. Then he's playing the Irish Open, another national open. And then the DP World Tour, their flagship event at Wentworth. Then the Ryder Cup, which some call the ultimate national open. Then the India Championship, which is a brand new tournament. Then he's got the Dubai DP World Tour playoffs. And then it's another national open, the Australian Open. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 6 national opens plus a Ryder Cup coming. So if you're looking for motivation, national opens are a good place to start. And I am actually going to the Canadian Open for the first time.
Okay, you just booked your flight.
I just booked my flight. Why'd you see that come through? Is that okay?
It's like Air Canada. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going for the first time. I've heard that the crowd is incredible. It's at TPC Osprey. It's like outside of Toronto. Really looking forward to it. Week before the U.S. Open. I will not be at the Memorial this week because I'm going to NCAAs tomorrow for the match play. The match play portion begins tomorrow. And speaking of NCAAs, we are going to do a little preview with my NCAA correspondent. That's what I'm calling him. Brentley Romine. Brentley is joining us live on the line right now from down the road in San Diego. What's up? What's up, Brentley?
Yeah, what's going on?
What's going on? So we got you guys hearing a little bit of blowback in my mic? We're going to work on that one second. I'm just going to keep talking. Okay. So they made the cut. There's 30 teams that start the week. Top 15 advance to the final round of stroke play, which is today. Kind of walk us through it. It feels like the top sort of 7 spots are really being occupied by powerhouse programs that we thought we're gonna do this coming into the week.
Yeah, I think Mark Brody is somewhere feeling validated right now because his rankings have, been backed up by the fact that among the top, 10 or 11 teams on this leaderboard right now, they're the top 10 or 11 highest ranked teams in this field. So, the Auburns, the ASUs, they will easily make it to match play. And today it will just be about figuring out who amongst the Texas Techs and the Ole Miss and even the Florida States, who will get those final tickets into the knockout stage, which is tomorrow. And that's always like the individual championship is fairly exciting. But this afternoon, live on Golf Channel, the real theater, I think, is when you get down to, who's going to get the 7th, 8th, 9th spot. And there's always every year one team that plays their way in and one team that obviously plays their way out.
Yeah, I mean, they do, though, decide a Masters invite today, right? I mean, the individual champion has been given a Masters, so long as they stay amateur. So talk to me about Michael Lasasso. He's an Ole Miss guy. He's leading right now. He's a junior, so he would most likely stay as an amateur and get into the Masters. Oh, yeah. Apart from those shorts, and those shorts are just absolutely being stretched to their last thread. Give me the sort of Michael Lasasso file.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to start with the shorts.
Look at those shorts,
he's going to be playing. He's going to be playing in the Rocket Mortgage Classic in July, and you talked about how the media seems to, latch onto these storylines. That is definitely going to be catnip that week. But no, I mean, this is a kid who started out at NC State. He's from Raleigh. Wasn't a huge, standout on the AJGA, but since he's been at Ole Miss for the last 2 years, he's just been like a top 5, top 8 machine. And the interesting thing to know about him, though, is he's kind of had like the stretch of bad luck. When you go back to SECs last year, he got a stomach virus. He missed, 2 rounds of the SECs. He didn't count at all in regionals. He lost 22 pounds and played like crap in the summer. And he finally got back to campus, got his game back. Then he goes to Puerto Rico earlier this spring, and him and all of his teammates get the flu. So he has to battle through that. And then to top it all off, Cabo Collegiate, late March or early March, he's at the beach before the tournament starts, and he steps on a sea urchin. And I don't know if you've ever
never stepped on a sea urchin.
That looks like.
A lot of blood.
But it is almost like a aquatic porcupine, and all of these black like spines were stuck in his foot, and it took 4 hours to get all of them out. But he played well, and I think the bad luck is finally behind him. It's going to be him and Pishak Maishon from A&M that have separated themselves from the field. I think the champion will end up being one of those two guys, and they're going to have a little bit of an advantage today because they're going to go out and start on 10, play the meat of the golf course. That's 12 through 16, kind of the toughest, 5 or 6 holes on the course. They're going to get that a little bit early, so. I look for them to kind of make some birdies, separate themselves, and it'll be a heck of a battle between two guys that were passing toward finalists this year.
But the Texas A&M, he's a senior, right? So he probably wouldn't stick around to play in the Masters. Okay, another guy who's not a senior. Yeah, you never know. That's true. Jackson Koiven. So this is the last week of the college golf season, which means it's the end of the PGA Tour lists. The PGA Tour University, which is all the seniors. David Ford already won that. He's already playing professional because UNC didn't make it. He made his debut. Jackson this week at Colonial, missed a cut. Jackson Koiven with a top 10, I believe he's tied for 7th right now, would lock up his PGA Tour card and I believe be eligible to start as a, if you get your tour card by winning PGA Tour U or PGA Tour Accelerated, you get a year and a half of an exemption. You get the rest of this year. So he could start next week. And there's actually 4 guys, and we're going to get into this, who could start next week as PGA Tour players out of college. David Ford, who is officially going to start. Gordon Sargent, who we're going to talk about in a second, so don't talk about him just yet, Brentley. Luke Clanton, who has locked up through PGA Tour U Accelerated. He is definitely going to start next week. And Jackson Koiven. But Koiven has said that he's going to stay. Do you believe him?
He told me 100% certainty yesterday that no matter what happens, he will stay. And regardless of if he top 10s this week, if we're projecting that he may turn pro next summer, he's going to get to that 20 points because he's playing in the Palmer Cup here in a couple of weeks. So he's going to get there eventually. But yeah, if he gets it today, he would be eligible to play, RBC Canada next week. But he's coming back to school. I don't see, unless he's comfortable with lying straight to people's face, which he's a great kid, so he's not. He's going to be coming back to school at least one more year.
But it's an interesting topic, and that brings us to Gordon Sargent, because Gordon Sargent locked his up. He opted to come back to school, and his game has fallen off a cliff. He is outside of the top 500 in the college rankings. Vanderbilt did not bring him to regionals and did not bring him to nationals. So he goes from being the best player in college golf to can't even get a substitute spot on his own team. Do you think that this is going to make guys like Clanton rethink things a little bit? Like Koiven, I should say.
Like Koiven, or a guy like Clanton, like getting your accelerated and debating coming back for an extra year. No, these struggles really started for Gordon last spring. The the waywardness off the tee started in Cabo last spring. And, I really feel like that week at the Masters 2 years ago exposed some parts of his game. And I think him being in the spotlight there for that stretch in the run up to that tournament where everyone was proclaiming him the next big thing in golf, I really think that made him uncomfortable. And he realized that he wasn't ready to make that jump. And so he comes back a year, and it's golf. He could have just as easily, played really well and, shored up parts of his game, and the narrative could be completely different. But, unfortunately it's gone the complete opposite way. And, there's been examples in the past. I think about, the current coach at Oklahoma right now, Ryan Hybl. He was a AJGA stud early in his college career. And, similar thing happened to where, he wasn't in the lineup for Georgia later in his career. So it happens to the best of them. And it's going to be, imperative that Gordon, gets the right people around him. And, hopefully, he can get through this summer and figure some things out. And, but yeah, it's definitely very concerning when a player like that can't even make the lineup for a Vanderbilt team that's very much lean at the back end. So, there are big concerns here, and it'll be interesting to see what he does next week, because you can't play on the PGA Tour if you can't drive the golf ball.
Well, that's the thing. He's going to the PGA Tour now, having not played a tournament in a little while, and I was looking at his last 5 events. He's combined 80-something over par in his last.
Yeah, he hasn't finished inside the top 50 this spring.
Right, but at least he's got money. That's one thing about this conversation that should not be left out is if this was 10 years ago before NIL, he'd be SOL.
Yeah.
But now at least he signed a Nike deal, he signed a Titleist deal. I'm sure Vanderbilt put together a nice package for him to stay. So at least he's got.
Yeah, there was a high 6-figure incentive for him to return as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Auburn will put together a nice little package for Mr. Clavin. Before I let you go, and Brentley's a part of the broadcast team, Golf Channel, starts, I believe, at, what is it, at 3 p.m.?
6 Eastern, 3 Pacific.
3 Pacific. Before I let you go, unique situation. BYU, they survive the cut. So they don't play on Sundays. So the 4 rounds of stroke play for the NCAAs this week were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Thursday was the practice round. I get out there on Thursday, and I didn't know this because I'm not quite as knowledgeable as Brentley, but one of the players on another team, he goes, BYU's playing today. I said, what do you mean? He said they don't play on Sundays, so they play their 3rd round of the NCAAs during the practice day, and then other teams play Friday, Saturday, so do they, and then they sit out Sunday, and then they play their final round on Monday. They shot 1 over in their round by themselves. They play as singles, so it's not like usually it's threesomes. You got one player from each school, and they play together, and they played by themselves with markers. Yeah, you love that stuff, weirdo. And they shot, I think, the 4th best round. Their score on Sunday was 1 over, which was one of the best rounds. Obviously, you're playing, or you can't control the weather. It can go one way or the other way. Brentley, leaving your opinion out, behind closed doors, what do people think about this situation where BYU plays by themselves on a separate day?
There are a lot of other teams, other coaches that don't like this. And, this is the 5th time that this has happened. Way back in the day when Bobby Clampett was winning national titles with BYU, the schedule was a little bit different. So the tournament didn't leak into Sunday at all. But historically, these coaches, I guess they have a right to be upset because BYU's getting the course on Thursday, one day after the women. It's going to be infinitely softer than it was for the teams yesterday. But I would say otherwise, wind was pretty similar. But there's also a lot of disadvantages as well, too. And, talking with the BYU players, it's very hard to go out there and just play by yourself. You have no gauge of what's a good rhythm score, what's a bad score. You don't get to see, other shots being hit and how they react in the wind. You don't get to see putts, from your playing competitors. So I think there's a give and take on whether there's an advantage or not. And, I go back to Karsten Creek in 2018, which was the very first year. Other coaches some of them were besides themselves because BYU came out, they made 4 birdies, and then Peter Quest made an albatross. And so they were off and running. And then there was a 2-hour thunderstorm delay. They came back out, made a bunch of bogeys, and ejected from that championship. And it's been a similar story up until, this year. But this is a really good team too this year. Johnny Miller's grandson, Simon Kwan's on there. Obviously, Todd Miller, one of his sons, is the director of golf. Cole Ponich is a really cool story, a 6-year senior who, was a, first team, second team AJGA All-American with, guys like Ryan Gerard, John Pack, Ben Griffin, things like that. So this is a team that has a lot of horses on it. And I wouldn't be surprised today, playing with everyone else again, getting back into the swing of things after a day of rest. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a little bit of a run because they're going to be playing with Texas A&M and Virginia getting off early on the back nine.
Awesome. Amazing stuff, Brentley, the oracle of college golf. I'll see you out there tomorrow. Looking forward to it, my friend.
Hey, looking forward to it, Dan. I'll buy you a drink afterwards, too.
Sounds good, buddy.
Can I ask you a quick question about that, Tim?
Yeah.
You said they played the day before, but then they count it as their third round score?
Yeah.
Isn't that the unfair part? Shouldn't it just be their first round score?
Well, then they would have to play on. What do you mean? It doesn't make a difference. I mean, all the scores count the same. You know what I'm saying?
I was just thinking, like, if they did well and then they did poor for 2 days and then just, like, plop that in, like, you should be going into the third round with the fear of we just had 2 bad rounds. They don't have to do that. They get to go in and be like, oh, we had some good scores.
I agree. Yeah, I don't.
Interesting.
It's not an easy answer. And speaking of no easy answers, picking golf winners is apparently not an easy business. I am joined by Rick Gehman. I want to remind everyone we are still up big time on the year, and there are going to be lean weeks, and we don't really even need to talk about last week. I've actually forgot about it. Rick, joining us on the line. How we doing, Rick?
Gentlemen, yes. Well, the good thing is we had the weekend to do anything we wanted because we weren't sweating golf bets is what we were definitely not doing. But yeah, this is the nature of it, right? This is a streaky business, and we're still way up, and we're just going to continue to get as many opportunities as we can here.
Okay, Memorial course with a ton of history. Walk me through the course profile. It's big. It's hard.
Yeah, big boys only. I mean, this is a golf course that the eye test, the models, they all point to elite tee to green play. You just can't fake it. You just have to do everything so well. Even the course architecture guys on Twitter love this place because it asks you a lot of different questions. It's just so hard. And then the other thing is, remember, right after 2020, when they were playing 2 back-to-back events, they played the Workday Charity Open, then they played the Memorial back-to-back weeks. They were ripping up this golf course right afterwards. So the greens are new as of 2021. So we do look at those in regards to putting numbers a little bit more closely. But yeah, this is for your big boys right now.
Speaking of that little double, the guy who won the first of those 2 tournaments, I remember, was Colin Morikawa. That was an epic one. I think he beat JT and Victor Hovland. It was a great tournament. You like him again this week. Walk us through why, after a bad week at the PGA, you're believing in Colin.
Yeah, so 18-1. You're right. He beat Justin Thomas in a playoff at that work day, and then I think he finished 18th or something like that at the Memorial version. And his numbers are really good at this event, and they're actually better than they appear. So he has the runner-up finish at the Memorial in 2021, the runner-up finish here last year. The 2023 edition, he withdrew. So it shows up as a WD on his stat sheet, but he was 2 shots off the lead going into Sunday's final round. It was like he had a back spasm. It never popped up again, and he just didn't play that event. I look at what he did at the Truist, where he made enough birdies to win that golf tournament, which is something that he's been doing routinely. He's making plenty of birdies or better. He's just got too many big numbers on the card. I believe that is a lot easier to clean up than having to make a lot more birdies or eagles. So I like the way Colin Morikawa sits up for this golf course, obviously, and I think there's kind of something that's brewing underneath the surface here that we're about to get.
Top 10 pick for the week.
Corey Connors. I know this is Ben's favorite, right? This is where
we're going to make money on Corey Connors this week. We're going to do it.
This is where CoreCon makes everybody the money. So it's the top 10 stuff. And
we should before we go, we should have an event. We should have the CoreCon, like Comic-Con. The CoreCon. It's just all the Corey Connors fans of the world. Yeah, maybe we'll do it in Canada. Maybe we'll do it in Canada. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, he's been brilliant. So he's got 4 top 10 finishes since API. He has hardly finished outside the top 20 this year. His tee to green numbers are unbelievable, and he's actually putting well again. So this is the combination of just ball strike the heck out of this place, keep it in play off the tee, give yourself a bunch of looks, and don't putt like a maniac. And Corey Connors has started to putt a lot better. This year he's using that new putter that he's got in the bag. It's a prototype, I believe. So things are going well for Corey, and I think we're going to get him here inside the top 10.
And then a top 20 to take us home for the week, Mr. Gehman.
It's not a top 20. It's a prop.
It's a prop.
It is.
Prop to take us home for the week, Mr. Gehman.
Prop 20. It is, will there be a playoff? Yes.
Wow.
I love that.
I like this.
At 4-1. So, a couple of things here. This is a golf course that allows the best players to separate, but there is not a lot of randomness, right? So there, you think about TPC Sawgrass, just random. Right? I mean, there's
2-shot penalties for there's water everywhere.
Correct. So you get random scores, which then over time creates volatility and a wider range of scores. You don't see that here. 6 of the last 11 editions have gone to a playoff. Now, remember, this just started being a signature event where when you have fewer players in the field, again, you get fewer outcomes. You get a smaller range of outcomes with those players. So this is a golf course that sets up really well for a playoff. It is a field style that sets up really well for a playoff. At 4-1, I couldn't pass it up. And this one will at least give us a sweat for as long as possible if things start going sour in other directions.
Beautiful. He keeps his streak alive. My mom's a big fan of yours, Rick. She was asking me yesterday. She said, who's coming on the show? And I said, wow. We've got Brentley to talk about college golf. We've got Josh. She goes, what about Rick? I said, well, Rick's automatic. So you got a fan in Miss Rappaport.
Very sweet. Much appreciated. I love that. Okay. I love that.
Good stuff. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
See you at CoreCon, Rick.
Later.
Yeah, CoreCon is actually a decent idea.
I love that. If we win that bet this week, I want to replay the clip next week of me being like, does anybody make money on Corey Connors? And then we'll cut it and we'll say, we do.
We do, baby. We're the ones. All right, we're guest heavy today. We are guest heavy today. We are going to bring on our next guest. So we've done 3 of these so far, these sort of Ryder Cup check-ins. We've done 2 with Luke Herdanine from Golf Digest, and we're going to bring on our friend James Gregg from the BBC over in the, Luke's kind of a fake Euro. Sorry, I'm just going to, he's been living in.
Because he stateside?
Yeah, I think he went to high school. He went to one of the golf academies in North Carolina, and James James is a man of steel of Sheffield, England. Mr. Gregg, talk to me. What's up, my friend?
How are you, Dan? Good to be back on. Yeah, you're right. Let's not talk about our soccer teams, though, and just move it on.
They actually,
all right?
I was telling you how about Man United needed to win to get into the Champions League. So Sheffield United, which is Greggy's team, they needed to win to get into the Premier League, which is an even bigger jump.
The next level, yeah.
They lost. What a kind of a soft goal, too.
Really soft, yeah, late on as well. And I will tell you something now. Matt Fitzpatrick, who is also a Sheffield United fan.
I keep telling him that he needs to put some cash together and buy the club.
Well, he keeps getting asked by the football club to do that. So you're not the only one. But he actually flew from Florida, landed 7 a.m. the morning of the game on Saturday. They obviously lose. I think he was planning on obviously having a nice celebration with the team, and then flew back, and now he's at the Memorial. So that was quite a rough week.
Well, that's the problem. I was talking to because Shane Lowry was talking about going to Bilbao and Rory went. Maybe that's why he's not playing Memorial. I don't know, and Shane was like, they could lose. I'm like, yeah, that is a 50% proposition that you fly all the way there and then they lose. Okay, let's talk about golf. We're gonna do our Ryder Cup picks. We're each going to pick our 12. We are halfway through the season, more than halfway through the season as far as tournaments go, and we are halfway through the majors. So we're going to do a checkup here. We're going to do a checkup after the U.S. Open, and then we'll probably do as many more as I want. There's no rules. Okay, I will start first. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hit the honesty button first. Ready? Third honesty button of the day.
Go on.
I think we're underdogs. I think we're underdogs. Starting that narrative.
You're starting that?
Yeah, I'm starting it. Of the blue chip guys on our side, I have my list of. I'm only stoked about 2 of them, the way they're playing. Whereas the Europeans, I feel like, are buzzing all over the place. I'm going to start. No surprise here, Scotty Scheffler. So after I guess you could call it a slow-ish start to the season. I mean, that feels like we're stretching.
For him.
His last 6 starts: T2, 4th at the Masters, T8, win, T4. Scotty's our best player. Scotty is the best player. I like him leading our line.
Yeah, Yeah, I like it. I was surprised that the Masters actually talking to a lot of Americans who were saying, "Oh, Europe, your favourite." So I was like, "What, really?" Because it doesn't feel that way to us.
It's like the United Tottenham situation where it's like both teams are trying to be the underdog. You know, there's an advantage.
It's way obvious that Europe is the favourite.
I think so.
Well, that said, I mean, I just said I was at the Masters. I mean, obviously, Rory McIlroy is my first pick. I mean, do I really need to kind of say anything? He is he's not just the spine of the team, he's the entire vertebrae. So golf's newest Grand Slam winner obviously sits alongside Scotty at the top of the order for me.
Strong to start. Okay, my number 2, Bryson DeChambeau. He's third in the points, which is, or might even be second in the points. He's probably going to make it despite only playing the majors, but that's a testament to how good he has been in the majors. He's had a chance to win 5 tournaments in a row, 5 of the last 6 majors. So all 5 of the major championships played in the United States. The last 5 he's had a chance to win. This is at Bethpage Black, a course that is very similar to those other big American major championship venues. Bryson, he's number 3 in the world on data golf behind just Scotty and Rory. So Bryson's my number 2.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, look, if you want a driving machine, we discussed this last time, didn't we? It was, you want somebody who is long and straight, and there's nobody better in the world than Ludwig Oberg for that. It's going to be absolutely perfect for him. I thought it was quite important that he got a big win this season. There obviously is still a lot of golf to play, but I think that win at the Genesis at Torrey, I thought that was kind of what we wanted to see, really, because we know he's cool, we know he's calm. He obviously had a good run at things at the Masters as well. He was right in the mix until pretty much the 72nd hole, and obviously part of that team. I will remind you of this again. Sorry, Americans, but he was part of that team that beat Brooks and Scotty 9 and 8 at Marco Simone. So Ludwig Oberg, genuine Ryder Cup star.
My number 3 is Xander Schauffele. Pretty significant streak was broken last week at the PGA Championship. Going into that week at Quail Hollow, Xander Schauffele had 12 straight finishes of T18 or better in the majors. That was broken with a T28 at Quail Hollow. I keep waiting for him to kick it into gear this year. It hasn't quite happened yet, but I'm a believer in Xander. 2 majors last year, and it hasn't been horrible. It's not like he's missing cuts left, right, and center, but Xander's going to be my number 3.
There's a lot of golf still to play, though, Danny, isn't there? And this is what I keep telling myself. There is still a lot that can happen. All it takes is 2 good weeks from Xander, and all of a sudden he's a man to be feared, isn't he? So I think that the next pick is no surprise. Obviously, a good performance at Colonial yesterday. Tommy Fleetwood, you think back to the 16th tee at Marco Simone, you think back to Paris, him and Francesco Molinari, absolute. That's where he comes alive, isn't it? He's a less brash Ian Poulter. So Tommy Fleetwood next in, absolute no-brainer, and, great character. What a great character.
Another character for us, Justin Thomas. I think he's sort of the emotional leader of this group. I will say, very disappointing first 2 majors of the year. He's number 5 in data golf rankings because outside of the big tournaments, he's been a champ. But the 3 biggest tournaments that he's played this year so far, T36 at the Masters, missed cut at the PGA Championship, T33 at the Players. He's going to make the team. But I feel like I have to call out disappointments when I see them. It's been a disappointing major season so far for JT.
Still 2 to go. I'm envious of JT on your team. He's one of those that goes on.
You don't want to play
surely he's got.
Yeah.
I just think, has he got an Italian grandmother or something that we can try and pinch? He's just one of those. I'm really envious of him. Somebody that you're probably envious of at the moment because. You said it last time, he's basically American. Sepp Straka, second win of the season a couple of weeks ago at the Truist. That golf course was great, by the way. More time for that another time. But I think he's great. He's just cold-blooded. And actually, in the same way that Ludwig Oberg is going to be so unperturbed by a very rowdy crowd at Bethpage Black, I think Sepp Straka, it's all water off a duck's back to those 2. So, he's a Georgian, but he's got an Austrian passport, so we'll have him.
The Georgia guys call him the Austrian redneck, so I'm still taking ownership over him. My 5th pick is Colin Morikawa. He called his standard of play at the PGA, I think it was embarrassing or something like that. Sean Zock, who's got a second shot on the show, had a story about that. New caddy on the bag, but still a killer. Very good in match play. Very, very solid. Doesn't hit a lot of wayward shots, which is very good for the alternate shot format. So we're still in my kind of absolute locks here. Colin Morikawa, number 5.
Yeah, same here. Just sort of rolling off the locks. The next one, obviously Shane Lowry, unbelievable short game player, gets pumped, gets stuck in, has a pretty good Ryder Cup record actually now. Major pedigree, obviously. Hasn't won on the PGA Tour since he won the Open at Portrush in 2019, which I find really surprising.
Yeah, he's been
if you look at how many times how many times has he been in the mix? But that said, he's the sort of guy that actually, and we're talking about envy for each of his teams here, Danny. I think Shane Lowry's probably one of those, isn't he? Because he's just finds an extra gear from nowhere that he can't find all year else, but in the Ryder Cup, he just comes alive. So Shane Lowry, bang, straight, and I'm happy with that one. It puts a smile on my face.
So my next one I was gonna say is another lock, but I have demoted him to probable. It's Patrick Cantlay. It's because he's deeply unserious in the major championships. This is why I'm saying we're underdogs. T36 at the Masters, missed cut at the PGA, missed the fuck out of the cut at the PGA. I think he was 4 over through 4 holes and just never really sniffed it. And our man Rick had him as a pick to win that week. But he has been very good in the last 2 team competitions. He was probably the Americans' best player at the President's Cup. At Royal Montreal, I should say, and he was, caused a little controversy. That was probably the most I've ever liked him. That sounds really harsh. The most fired up he ever got me was with Hatgate. So I'm picking Cantlay as number 6. But from really Cantlay, I mean, he's probably 97%. Everyone from here on out, it's fair game. But there's my number 6, Patrick Cantlay.
Okay, the next 2 of mine are LIV golfers. So I'll start you off with Tyrrell Hatton, won the Dubai Desert Classic in a very strong field.
I like their top 6 better than even their top 6 I like better.
Oh, really? See, that's interesting. I mean, look, he's still a top player, Tyrrell Hatton, and he has shown that in sort of non-LIV events, which is something that, definitely gets him into the picture, definitely gets him into the team, his previous record and all the rest of it, Even if he is playing hit and giggle week in, week out, which I'm still convinced LIV is, and it's certainly done no good for his game. But I've got to say, anytime he has turned up to a non-LIV tournament, he just looks like the same golfer. So, big up Tyrrell Hatton. He's in.
He's in, and he's a guy who, there might be some altercations between him and some fans. Things could get a little bit ugly, and I'm looking forward to it. My next pick is Maverick McNeely. There is a huge delta between his official world golf ranking, which is number 11, and his data golf ranking, which is number 39. But he's a great putter, and this might be a little bit of, personal bias. I just can't get his quote out of my head. My goal is not to be at Bethpage. It's to win points at Bethpage, and it's to frustrate people with my putter. He's got an identity. He wants to be on this team right in the prime of his career. I think Mav gets a shot this year. He's my 7th pick.
As you know, I cover like 40 PGA Tour events wire to wire every single year, and he is somebody that I just think would be such a good Ryder Cup player. I have a feeling you're going to say somebody else who I will also put into that bracket. But yeah, big fan of his. And also, you talk about that big gulf between the data golf and the official golf ranking. Surely you'd have it that way round rather than the other way round, because that shows that he's got something. He can dig in and actually squeeze every last drop out of the numbers. He has done that, hasn't he, Maverick McNeely? Brilliant. The next one I'm going to go for a man who's plummeted down the world golf rankings because he captains Legion 13. The only real sort of other LIV player that I can see with credit in the bank. I actually said to you last time we did this, just after the players, that I still need to see something from him. And I think I probably saw half of that.
I mean, you saw 65 holes of it.
Yeah, but I think he needs... What does he need? If he has one more top 30 in the remaining 2 majors, he's absolutely in. I just need to see one more thing from him. And I don't know why that is, because I love Jon Rahm, and I think he's amazing to watch. And he's definitely got all the attributes of the Ryder Cup. Great driver of the golf ball as well, Danny, isn't he? But I don't know. There's something in me that's my 6th sense. But for the moment, he's on my team, so there we go.
If you want to leave him out, that's totally fine with me.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Because you're saying that, I won't then. Is it definitely in?
Yeah, he's not someone that I want to play against. My next guy is Denny McCarthy. He came up in a random player generator for the PGA, and I said I wanted to see, like you said, you wanted to see something out of Jon Rahm. I wanted to see something out of Denny McCarthy in a major championship. He finished 8th at the PGA. I love to see it.
He's the best putter on God's green earth. He has been for a while. He's only 6th in strokes gained putting this year, so it must be an off year. But I want our Ian Poulter. I want our guy who it doesn't look pretty on the range, and you look around, you're like, how am I 2 down to this guy? How does he keep making 12 footers for par? I think that putter with those crowds, and Denny's a fiery character. I'm going with Denny. I think this is the year.
Absolutely, yeah, he's brilliant. I actually think there was a case for him being in Marco Simone, but there you go. He was that video you put up of him practicing his putting at Quail Hollow, Danny. It was strange because it seemed to me to be about 6 hours long, that video, because I was just holding it. And just
it was like watching
Steph
Curry shoot threes. You know what I mean? It was like watching prime Justin. This is not gonna mean anything to you. It was like watching prime Justin Tucker's hit 40-yard field goals. It's just right down. The putt. It was a 6-foot putt. I would have bet my left testicle that it didn't miss, and it went right in the middle.
Don't do that. That could be foolish. Bobby McIntyre is my next one. He played great on debut, didn't he, last time around? Partnered Rose brilliantly, and then goes on to win twice last year, and had a good week at Colonial, and keeps putting in solid performances, doesn't he? I think he is also not just a 2 or 3 times a week player now at the Ryder Cup. I think we could well see him in kind of 4 or 5. I think he's that sort of player, and he's absolutely going to be on the team. I think Europeans will be even more buzzed about him if he can, maybe defend the Scottish or have a good week at the Open or something like that. But Bobby McIntyre bang straight in.
Yeah, I think he's comfortable. Now. I think there was a little bit of sad boy energy his first year or so on tour. That seems to be gone. He's been really consistent. My next guy, I would like to buy a Dan Berger. Daniel Berger. You like that? It was a little Pink Panther. Also missed the cut at the Colonial, but he's been really, really consistent this year. I've just kind of had a hunch. These last 3 guys, McNeely, McCarthy, and Berger, I feel like they're going to be on the team. And Berger's been really consistent this year. Hasn't had sort of the top-end finishes that you would like to see. And also he's one of the lowest ball hitters on the PGA Tour. But I think Daniel Berger gets back in the picture this year. He is my 9th pick.
He oozes class, Danny. I like that for a pick. Okay, the next kind of few. So this guy I said last time, Thomas Dietrich, the big hitting Belgian, obviously won at an absolute canter at TPC Scottsdale winning the Phoenix Open. Has he done much since? No, he hasn't really, let's be honest. But he's a bit of a... He's a classic kind of all over the place player in the sense that you don't really know what he's going to do next. But I think that suits him absolutely perfectly in match play. So I've got no issue with him being on the team in a Ryder Cup setting. He does need to kind of continue something throughout the next few months to, again, sort of keep that buzz amongst the European fans. But I think I referred to Nicholas Colsaerts last time and obviously Thomas Peters, 2 of his countrymen. And they did all right in Ryder Cup play because they were basically cut from an identical cloth. He's still in there for me at the moment, Thomas Dietrich.
Okay, my 10th pick is Harris English. We got some experience here, which is nice. I think he would be the oldest guy on the team of the ones that I have named. Won at Tour this year, just finished tied for 2nd in a major. He's way up there on the points because of that tied for 2nd. He's also a bit of a U.S. Open doctor. He finished 4th in 2020, 3rd in 2021, tied for 8th in 2023. I'm expecting another good finish in the U.S. Open from Harris English. And this is more kind of a function of the guys who aren't playing well. I'm going to wait to get to my sort of honorable mentions until after, but these last 3 spots for me are very much open. Harris English is number 10.
Well, I've got some new faces from the last time around, which was just after the players, like we said. So here we go then. Out go Steven Jaeger, Aaron Rai, and Rasmus Niergaard Peterson. And in come, 3. I'm gonna start with Victor Hovland.
I was going to say, I was surprised he wasn't there before.
Well, he's won the Valspar, but Danny, he was all over the place. He was basically being schizophrenic about his golf game, wasn't he?
He wins.
He doesn't
know what he's doing.
He wins.
He wins by accident.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're absolutely right with that, because when he won the Valspar, that interview he gave after was extraordinary, wasn't it? Where he was saying, I wasn't really sure where I was hitting it. It's like, come on, you've just beaten Justin Thomas down the stretch at Innisbrook. Anyway, it did make me think, yeah, you're in. you're in now.
Yeah.
So there we go. And actually, with a nice little stretch of really tough courses to come, I think we could see him, do all right and come into the Bethpage Black in probably the best form he's been in for a couple of years.
I'm putting the over/under on 2.5 coaching switches between now and Bethpage Black. But he's the constant, and he'd do okay with each one. My next guy, this guy's way up there in data golf, Russell Henley, another guy who. The first two, he won the biggest tournament of his career at Bay Hill. He beat Colin Morikawa. Everyone's loving him at Augusta, Georgia. Boy from Georgia, lives in Georgia, went to Georgia, misses the cut. PGA Championship, misses the cut. 2 missed cuts in the first 2 majors of the year. Not very good. But he is super steady and kind of fits the sort of Morikawa mold, I would say, where it hits a lot of very, very straight golf shots. It'll be I could see him playing 3 times, playing the 2 alternate shot, the 2 foursome sessions, and then singles. I'm going with Henley, my number 11.
He is also your natural partner to Scotty, isn't he? We saw that at the President's Cup. So yeah, no, I'm fearing that particular partnership. My next one is, so out goes one Rasmus, in comes another Dane called Rasmus Højgaard. 2 reasons, mainly because I think he's absolutely going to be on the team. I looked at the points list and the guy's third, cemented, pretty much a lock. So I've kind of got to include him because he's probably going to be there. And look, secondly, I've also seen some slightly kind of bipolar golf from him a little bit this year. Good low rounds at times, just doesn't string 4 together. That's why we've not seen the results that you'd expect for somebody of his kind of talent. But in the Ryder Cup, a bit like Dietrich, completely cool with it. And he got a flavour of it last time around when he was watching his twin brother Nikolai just basically riding around on a buggy with Thomas Bjorn in Italy. So, Rasmus Højgaard. Totally fine with him being in the team.
I am surprised because you only have 1 spot left, and there's 2 names, Justin Rose and Matt Fitzpatrick, and one of those will not be left on. We'll get to that in a second. My 12th and last pick, and then I'll give my honorable mentions, is Andrew Novak. Ooh. He's 8th in the points. He played with Keegan at the PGA, did super solid, and he's been really good all year, even against big fields. I like him as a character. I like his attitude. We spent a little bit of time with him. He's a cool guy. And this is, again, it's just as much about Andrew Novak as it is about the guys who aren't playing well. So, my sort of honorable mentions, first ones out, are all, decently big names. Ben Griffin, you have to give a nod to. He's got, if he keeps playing, he could play his way on there. Tony Finau showed a little bit at the PGA Championship, but just been not very good this year. Max Homa, another guy who was in the mix at the PGA Championship for 2 rounds, but he faded considerably. It still feels a bit fluky. Brooks Koepka, who won at Bethpage Black the last time they had a big golf tournament, 2019 PGA Championship. He's done nothing in the majors, and he's been only okay on LIV this year. Jordan Spieth feels like every time he gets into a big competitive field, he finishes kind of in that 30th range. And then Keegan Bradley. If he wasn't the captain, I'd put him on the team, right? And that's this sort of dynamic that we keep talking about. Is he says, not me, he says he won't do both. And he says, how am I going to help the team the most? Does he improve the top 12 there? Probably. Does he improve the top 12 enough by playing to offset whatever negatives come from him not being the captain and having Jim Furyk captain this team, which I think would be the guy who would step in? I say no. So Finau, Homa, Koepka, Griffin, Spieth, and Bradley are my guys on the outside looking in right now. Who's your final pick, James?
That's not. I tell you what, Danny, that's not a bad group to have.
No, it's a strong bet. If the Ryder Cup was 18 guys, maybe we'd be the favorite.
Oh, 100%. Exactly. It's a great kind of second rung, if you like, isn't it? Have you heard what I heard? Somebody told me at the Masters, I'm not going to name them, but somebody with good authority, that the plan all along now is for basically if Keegan Bradley gets in, for Tiger to captain the Ryder Cup team.
I have not heard that. I mean, maybe. I asked him about this at Quail, and he named Jim Furyk very quickly. He's like, I've got great captains, Jim Furyk, who's done this before. So maybe. But who's your last pick? Stop dancing around it.
Right, okay. It's you know what? The reason I'm messing around is because it's a bit of a toss-up, but I'm going to go Justin Rose. And there were actually 3 Englishmen, the other one being Matt Fitzpatrick, the other one being Matt Wallace. I'll talk about those other 2 in a sec, but Rose purely because of his showing at the Masters, the fact he's had top 10s at Pebble and at Bay Hill this year, and obviously is Justin Rose.
He was also second at Troon. He was second in 2 majors in a row.
That's true, exactly. So, look, what a man to kind of have involved. And he is still a top 20 player, officially. So, the summer is his wheelhouse, actually, where he does really kind of hit form. Fitzpatrick, great top 10 finish at the USPGA. Was right in the thick of things, wasn't he? Just finished really poorly. Just 3 holes that, if he'd have finished tied third or whatever there, then everyone's going, oh, well, he's got to be in. I think it's strange, isn't it, how 3 holes can kind of change everybody's perception. His Ryder Cup record isn't amazing, I think, by his own admission.
That is generous.
1 point from, 8 matches? So I think Fitz on the periphery needs to have a big summer. And Matt Wallace, top 20 at the USPGA, he's up there on the standings.
United.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's a big United fan, isn't he? So I think that his character and temperament would be great, but he needs, both of those two of the players that I've mentioned need to have a big few months in the lead up. But yeah, they're all in the mix. But you know what? It's hilarious. You've named like 6 guys outside of your team there that are on the periphery. I can't do that. So, let's just hope.
Well, the good news is you only need 12. You only need 12, and I think.
Well, that's true.
I think your list. If I would probably sub Rasmus out and put Fitzy in just because he's had 2 solid weeks in a row and he's a bit more proven. It's a scary group. And that's why I think we're underdogs. Awesome, good stuff, James. You've shown yourself very well. Sorry about Sheffield United, but we're misery loves company. We'll be back.
We will. Thanks for having me, mate.
All right, good stuff. More guests. This next guy, Josh Carpenter, is my favorite reporter, period. He's an old school reporter, Sports Business Journal. This guy tells you what he sees, which is a little bit of a lost art in journalism. He's the guy who was at the PGA Championship, and while everyone's going to Rory McIlroy's press conference or whatever, he sees, oh, there's Mark Steinberg and there's the new LIV CEO, and they're talking. He's that kind of reporter. Oh. So there's a lot going on in the sort of business side of golf. Maybe less than we want as far as the PGA Tour and Saudi Public Investment Fund negotiations, but there's a lot going on. LIV Duels, LIV PIF negotiations. There's a new LPGA commissioner, and we get into all of that. Enjoy my interview with Josh Carpenter. All right, I'm joined by, I think I'm going to say you're my favorite reporter.
Love that.
Just in general, not just sports business reporter, not just golf reporter. The reason I like your work so much is it's very different. In the media center, most guys are going to the press conference to write about, the 68 that Rory McIlroy shot. You're more concerned with who he talked to after. Is that a fair description of sort of what are you looking for at golf events?
I like to keep people on their toes, right? You go try and it's no fun if you're not, right? So you go to an event and you try and mix it up. And you know what, Dan, I might go to an event. I went to the Players in March and ended up my best story that week, I thought, was on the USGA's media rights, right? Which has nothing to do with the Players Championship. Maybe it does because it's on NBC, but in a large way, it doesn't have anything to do with the Players Championship. So that's what my people look for, and that's what I try and go and execute on.
You're probably the best equipped person to comment on, I sort of, a lot of people ask me, where does all this money come from that all these players are making, and where did they find all this money after the LIV stuff? And, I try to explain that so much of the golf business is CEOs who enjoy sort of hanging out with each other and having access. How would you explain to a layperson why a company like Truist, right, which is a bank, right, it's not like a consumer products or CDW, why do these companies want to spend so much money in golf?
Well, one, because they love golf. If you look, let's use Truist for an example. Truist is a bank that's based in Charlotte. They're a newer bank, right? They just merged with BB&T and SunTrust merged a few years back. And so Truist is relatively new. And I think their CEO, Bill Rogers, said, I want to put our stamp down and make our name known across the country, not just as some Southeast regional bank. And these executives, they love having access to these players and being able to tell their friends and their colleagues, hey, I played golf with Jordan Spieth on Tuesday, or I played golf with Ricky Fowler on Tuesday. And so golf is just a great sport to entertain, to sell around. And it's why these companies are paying, some of these signature event sponsors, Dan, are paying, $25 million a year to sponsor a golf tournament.
Who are the 3 most important people in golf that the layperson doesn't know? So Jay doesn't count. Tiger doesn't count. I'll say Yasser doesn't count. When you see 2 people having a conversation, who sort of piques your interest?
When I see 2 people having a conversation,
like if you saw one guy talking to another guy, what would raise your alarm? Is like, oh, that's something.
Well, so great example of the PGA Championship last week, and this is the kind of stuff that I love and that our readers love. Is like I see Scott O'Neill, who's the CEO of LIV, having a pretty lengthy discussion with Mark Steinberg, who has been the man behind Excel Sports Management for, 25 years at this point, right? Tiger's agent, obviously. Excel over the years has been pretty, I would say, anti-LIV. They haven't been a huge supporter of LIV. And so, like, to see the new CEO of LIV and Mark Steinberg having I don't want to call it an animated conversation, but they were pretty deep on stuff, it looked to be. In front of the Quail Hollow Clubhouse. Like, I love seeing that. Anytime a network president is talking to someone, a David Burson from CBS, someone from NBC, anytime they're having a conversation with a governing body, a CEO of a PGA of America, or USGA rights are up, right? If I see David Burson having a conversation with Mike Wan or John Padani who runs commercial for the USGA, I'm thinking, well, that's pretty interesting. The head of CBS, which doesn't have, USGA rights now, is talking to the head of the USGA. So does that mean that they're going to do a deal? Or
it's so funny because I think we think of these big organizations as like big organizations with like legal departments and this and the other, but like at the end of the day, at some point, it is like one person talking to another person and making a deal.
Yeah, it's just deal making. That's all it is, and it's built on relationships. I don't know, maybe we'll get into it, like the new LPGA commissioner, Greg Kessler, who was just announced, this past week, is a super endearing, a super personal guy who has a lot of deep relationships and who can do a lot of deals. And I think that's why he's going to be so important to the LPGA, because not a knock on Molly Marcoux-Simon, but one of the, some of the feedback I heard in her last couple of years from sponsors, from tournament organizers, was that the interpersonal relationship wasn't there. The connectivity wasn't there, which if you're in golf, that's what it's all about. And that's what you have to hit on.
All right, well, let's stop dancing around the elephant in the room. What is the state of the PGA Tour LIV negotiations? I mean, you're a proper insider. It seems to be, we are almost pretty damn close to 2 years since the framework agreement. I'll never forget it because it was 3 days before my wedding, and my second anniversary is coming up, so I'll never forget that. And LIV has been around. This is their 4th season. They've signed a lot of players. A lot of those players are still, contending in majors. John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau. Like, the status quo is what it is, right? Like, nothing's really changed, especially in the past year. I'm thinking back to, in December into January of December 23, January 24, they signed Rahm and Hatton, and it felt like the PGA Tour was kind of on unstable footing, right? Sort of one person away from maybe an inflection point. Things have sort of calmed down since then. It feels like the PGA Tour is on the front foot. That might be simplistic. What's your sort of state of the negotiations?
Well, I mean, the negotiation between, and I'll correct you a little bit here, Dan, between the PGA Tour and the PIF, not
Sorry,
LIV, right?
I'm getting too general here. I'm
getting super in the weeds here, but I think we all know that they had these talks at the White House, and gosh, it's been 3 months ago now. That Trump and Tiger and Jay and Yasser were all at the White House. There was a lot of optimism, obviously, that they would do a deal then. But now I think as the spring and we're getting into the summer has kind of progressed, there doesn't seem to be really any optimism in the industry. Like, that's from either side, from the LIV side or from the Tour side, that there's really any momentum around talks, or that it's kind of like that CBA negotiation you see between a union and a league, and like the NHL or MLB. I've been around those for so long, working at a sports business publication. The sides, they have these meetings, and then they go their separate ways, and they don't talk, right? And there's been no discussion, to my knowledge, in the last few months. And I think you've seen, I thought LIV had a ton of momentum in the offseason. Look what they did. Like going back to October, like we reported that Greg Norman was out, right? November, they bring Scott O'Neill on. They sign a deal with Fox Sports. To me, they had a lot of momentum. And the early part of their year, I know they're an international tour, but at least in the U.S., I felt like their momentum stalled a little bit just because they were so international. They played their first 4 events of the year overseas. They didn't get a ton of visibility in the U.S. We knew the ratings would not be good when they came out. But even with that, you still get those negative, thoughts and all this stuff that come out about the ratings. Even though they're overseas, they're playing in the middle of the night. And meanwhile, you have and I'll say, like, LIV has signed some corporate deals, right? They've got they brought Callaway has signed on with
Salesforce.
They had a 1-week Salesforce deal last week at the PGA. Ping obviously is on Neiman's team, so they I'm not to say they haven't had any success, but the PGA Tour really has had a lot of success this spring. And as you mentioned, I think they are on their front foot from the corporate deals they've signed to their television ratings have really bounced back from last year. They've been open about making changes. They have actually made some changes to their product, right? That's something that the tour has been known in the past for being kind of stagnant and just happy with what they've always been doing. And so they've made some changes to their product. We've seen it with the Tour Championship, which everyone kind of expects to change coming up this year. Wouldn't be shocked if we hear news on that in the next few weeks. The Tour Championship, you've seen their broadcasts. They've cut Dan between 6 and 8 minutes per tournament. I shouldn't say cut. They've added more live golf between 6 and 8 minutes per tournament. That doesn't seem like a lot, but to these commercial advertisers who pay a hefty sum to have visibility on these tournaments, it is a lot. And so you add that. I was told in 2023, they added 12 minutes of live golf across each tournament to their product. So, I mean, you think about 12 minutes and then you add 6 or 8 minutes this year. So you're going back the last 2 years and they've added about 20 minutes of live golf per tournament. Again, doesn't seem like a lot across 4 days, 3-hour windows, that sort of thing. But that's what the fans have been asking for. And the tour has delivered in a fair amount of ways.
The tour seems to be, I mean, obviously they're a more robust operation, right? Like the balance sheet makes more sense. There's going to be way less incentive for them to strike a deal just for a deal's sake, right? Because they're surviving in the current model. Do you get the sense that there's any anxiety on the LIV side? Because like, how much money are they losing, and can they really just continue to lose it and until Yasir says that's too much?
It's hard to say how much they've lost, per event or whatever. I mean, there's been some reports that have come out that, around like $5 billion, right? $5 billion is not a lot when you look at the treasure trove of, what is it? I feel like it goes up $100 billion every year. It's like,
I think it's like $1 trillion now. I heard $1 trillion recently.
It might be $1 trillion. Yeah. I don't know. So, is $5 billion really that much to them? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's a ton of anxiety. LIV has continued to, right? They just hired a new CEO. They keep bringing on executives. They just hired the guy who's running Aston Villa to kind of run a lot of their business, right? So they keep hiring, they keep pressing on, they keep scheduling new tournaments. The only way I think LIV would ever go away would be as if MBS just woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm tired of this. We've done this. I think that's one interesting thing. Yasir has been such a key player in all this all along, and I do still think he is. But since Trump came into office this year, he's had the ear of MBS, and MBS has become a much bigger player in this situation, I think, than he was before. Not that he wasn't a big player before, but I think it's even more so elevated now. And so I think he's much more keenly aware as to what's going on with all of this. And so, you know what? Yeah, he could wake up one day and just say, I'm tired of doing this and we're going to move on. I don't necessarily think he will, but it could happen.
So much of why they did this, it seems like, or at least that was the hypothesis, was like the like non-tangible benefit, right? Soft power type of thing, right? Like of getting into the boardrooms. And so
sure.
Would there be an argument if we got these guys behind closed doors, would they say, yeah, we've lost $5 billion, but look at the conversations that we've had, look at the rooms we're in. Like, is part of it sort of, has it worked?
Oh yeah, it's totally worked. Look, I mean, I think it's absolutely, I would say it's worked. Like, has it worked from a business standpoint, from a like revenue standpoint, a return on investment? Probably not. But from a conversation standpoint, to a greater, everyone just talks about LIV as it's just another one of the golf tours now, right? It's absolutely worked, I think. And I will say, like, to the larger negotiations, right? There's been all this thought that, does the tour need to do a deal? Does PIF need to do a deal? I still have to think that the guys behind Strategic Sports Group, which put that $1.5 billion into the PGA Tour, I still have to think that they want to do a deal with the Saudis. One, because they want access to some of that capital that the Saudis have, and two, so that the Saudis don't come in. If you look at the guys behind Strategic Sports Group, they're owners of major stick and ball sports here in the U.S., and you have to think that those guys don't want the Saudis to come in and do to their own stick and ball sports what the Saudis have done to golf over the last few years. Now, granted, they've already done that to golf. I always think, like, what you've seen, the PIF has come in and sponsored like some events on the ATP on the tennis side after what they did with golf.
I think the world rankings are called the PIF World Rankings now.
They are. I've often thought, like, what if Yasser Al-Rumayyan was a big tennis player instead of a big golfer? And what if the PIF came in and just rocked tennis like this? And maybe now you would have the PIF Global Series or something like that on the PGA Tour, which you do now have on the Ladies European Tour, by the way.
Yeah. What this new position that the PGA Tour is hiring for? I think it's CEO, right? Is that person gonna, how is that dynamic going to be with Monahan? And do you have any updates on that search?
Yeah, we've reported the last few weeks there are 4 finalists, and it's a pretty interesting group of finalists. You've got David Abelees, who's the CEO of TaylorMade, so you've got a kind of dyed-in-the-wool golf guy, right? You've got Jared Smith, who's a guy who used to run Ticketmaster. He's been running a mountain resort company for the last few years. So you've got a guy who's in the ticketing and entertainment industry, right? The third guy is Steve Phelps, who's run NASCAR very successfully for the last number of years, been in NASCAR for a long time and has done a great job, just signed really big new media deals in NASCAR. And then the fourth, and maybe my one to watch, is Bryan Rolapp, who's essentially one of Roger Goodell's top lieutenants at the NFL, running their media business. And so you've got kind of 4 very different candidates there.
These guys, but if they hire any of those people, they're going to want to come in and run the show, right? It's got to be a handoff. There's no way they're going to leave being number 2 at the NFL to be number 2 at the tour.
You're spot on, Dan. I don't think Steve Phelps leaves NASCAR, which outrates the PGA Tour every week on TV, or most weeks at least, and is going to go run the PGA Tour to work alongside Jay Monahan. I don't really know I don't know how that dynamic plays out. We've reported that Jay's contract is up at the end of next year, of 26. So who knows where he kind of goes beyond that. But yeah, I certainly don't think that Steve Phelps or Bryan, like you said, Bryan Rolapp's not going to leave the NFL as the number 2 to come run the PGA Tour and work under Jay Monahan. So still kind of to be determined how that dynamic plays out. But I certainly don't think that Jay Monahan's going to be the boss of the new CEO, because what organization has a CEO and a commissioner, right? Not many.
Yeah, it seems a bit redundant. That's awesome. That was great, Josh. I could pick your brain for a lot longer than this, and I probably will at the next media center I see you. We'll do this again. I like it.
Love it, man.
We're calling this JC's Business Hour. So thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it.
I love it. Carpenter's Corner or something like that.
Carpenter's Corner. We'll take that.
Old school reporter.
He had the name ready. Yeah, it's nice to listen to a guy who knows the pen is mightier than the sword. He's like a true pen is mightier guy.
He speaks with authority.
Yeah.
It's not like, I said to him, do you have any update on the search for the new PGA Tour CEO? He's like, well, just off the top of my head, here are the 4 guys we're interviewing.
Yeah, it's good reporting. That's what good reporting does.
He's right there. Okay, we're going to go from hardcore reporting to a subjective blind ranking. And I think we've done 2 of these.
This is our third, yeah.
This is our third. I think this is our best topic yet. We are going to, you know what? I'll let you tee it, my content caddy.
Content caddy.
Yes.
Let's take it over. Let's bring it here. All right, so we're doing world number 2s. These are 10 men who have peaked in their OWGR at numero dos.
As close as you can get to summoning the world rankings without doing it.
A bunch of bridesmaids.
There's only one name that really pops. There's one iconic number 2.
Right.
Number 2. It's not that number 2. It's a different number 2. But there's one guy in my head, so I'm excited to see who the other 9 are.
The guy in your head, I guarantee, is in the list. Maybe some people you didn't think of, but as always, you don't know any of these are coming. The eraser is irrelevant. Let's just get started right away. Start off with a guy who I love a lot and who I love his style a lot. He's been a Ralph Lauren guy for a long time. But in this photo we have of Davis Love III, he's wearing one of my favorite visors ever in the Tommy Armour 845S, the 845's irons. Where do you rank Davis Love?
I strong number 2. He's actually the third, Davis Love III, so that might, hurt his candidacy a little bit. I think of him as DL3, not DL2. But yeah, when I think of 1990s golf, that's kind of who I think of. Still, I saw a video that came up on my Instagram of him swinging it recently. It's still incredibly pure. I'm not surprised he never got to number 1 in the world. I would have put his career high ranking probably around number 4. I wasn't expecting him to have gotten all the way to number 2, but he won a lot of golf tournaments. I'm putting him number 6. Davis Love III.
Good spot.
Solid start. Okay, next.
Yeah, he was one of them before there was like a Tiger era. Right?
Correct.
All right, next is a guy you're familiar with, Mr. Collin Morikawa.
Yeah, Colin got about as close as you could get to being number 1 in the world without it. I remember I was at Hero when he had, I think, a 5-shot lead going into the final round, and if he won, he would have gotten to number 1 in the world, and he didn't win, and he's not gotten there since.
Wow.
I think that, Colin, 2 L's, so that's at number 2. And I also think I'm going to put him kind of high up there because I would think that this bothers him. I would think that this bothers him because he's a super fiery character. He's been sort of left behind by, the Brysons and the Scotties and the Xanders, just
He's
feels
outwardly claimed he's top 5. He reminded us multiple
top 5 for many, many years. Yeah. And he has been top 5 for many, many years. But he, when I think like of a number 2, he has one, and he's won 2 majors, so 2s are wild. I'm going number 4 for Collin Morikawa.
Okay.
I'm not saying that he's a better player. We're not talking about who's the better player here. We're talking about who's the better number 2, and I think he's a good number 2.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love the voodoo you're using to rank these ones.
Well, I got to do a little bit of geometry in my head.
Okay, next up is the worst dressed golfer in the world right now, Sergio Garcia.
Sergio Garcia never got to number 1 in the world. Yeah, is that a tan? Is that tan?
Tan Rappaport.
Tan Rappaport. I love that fit. Not surprising that I love that fit. I'm going to put him at number 7, right behind Davis Love III. An amazing career, won a lot of golf tournaments. Did get his major, which is nice. We got the 2017 Masters. I'm putting him number 7 behind Davis Love III. Another guy who I feel like probably a little bit bothersome that he never got to number 1 in the world. But unfortunately, his prime overlapped with a guy named Tiger Woods. A lot of guys probably feel like they would have gotten to number 1 in the world if that guy was never born.
Okay, next up, another modern player for you, Mr. Alexander Schauffele.
Xander Schauffele, strong number 2. And I'm going to say a really strong number 2 because he won 2 majors in a year and was still number 2 in Player of the Year.
Oh, right.
The also ran. I'm putting him number 3 in front of Collin Morikawa because if you win 2 majors in a year and you're not the Player of the Year and you're not number 1 in the world, that's some number 2 shit right there. So I'm putting him number 3.
He's helped define what it means to be a number 2 because he has him and the other guy, whoever was number 2 for Tiger, like they've always had that like juggernaut sitting right above them, no matter how well you do.
He was the strong number 2 to a generational year.
To a generational guy, yeah.
Year, yep.
Okay. Next up is a man who has become one of the more confusing figures in sports to me, Bubba Watson.
Yeah, won his Masters, won 2 Masters, but was never the most well-rounded player. Kind of felt like there were certain tournaments that he would tee up and didn't really have a chance to win. I think he got to number 2 more as a function of the world rankings almost overweighting wins because he would win on his courses. Riviera, Travelers, he won a couple times, and the Masters. He did a lot of his winning on 3 different courses.
And his Masters were 3 years apart, right? Like he won, lost, and then won
2
again.
2 years apart, 2012 and 2014.
So that stretch was probably when he...
It was a quick stretch, and he won a lot on his courses. I'm putting him at number 10.
Okay.
I feel like number 2 for Bubba Watson. If we had advanced metrics, if we had data golf back then, I don't think he would have ever gotten to number 2.
I think that's fair. You haven't filled the 10th spot this early in the game.
Yeah, well, we got Bubba at number 10, Sergio number 7, Davis Love number 6, Collin number 4, Xander number 3, and we are halfway there, living on a prayer. Let's keep it going.
Halfway through the deuces. All right, Decky Matsuyama.
Yeah, there was one very small window. I think it was 2016. He had just won, and I felt like he was the best player in the world. It was a very, very
short window. Another guy who's been kind of consensus top 15, but he hasn't had the sustained. He does win. He does like pop up and win. I'm going to put him at number 8 behind Sergio, just because I think of him as like one of the next waves. I don't think of him like when I think of Colin, there was definitely a period where he was like arguably the best player in the world. Xander Schauffele won 2 majors in 1 year. Hideki hasn't quite held that real estate in my
consistent, but not like a career number 2.
Yes.
You know? Okay, now we're throwing it way back with this next guy. Great fit in this picture. Always a bridesmaid, never the bride. Colin Montgomery.
Colin Montgomery never got his major. One of the best players to not do it.
Right.
Was an absolute stalwart on the European Tour forever. Won a bunch of Order of Merits over there. I'm going to put him number 5, just ahead of Davis Love III. Similar eras, similar resumes. He was a casualty of the Tiger generation. So I'm putting,
as most were.
Yeah, I'm putting him at number 5.
Okay, this is the final 3 now. 3 very different people, although 2 of them have something in common. Cameron Smith is next up.
Cameron Smith got to number 2 in the world in 2022. He won the Players, and then he won a little bit later. He won the Open Championship, and then departed for LIV as the number 2 player in the world. And I look now, he's number 163 and 63 in data golf. I'm putting him number 9, just because it was such a small window, and then also kind of similar to Bubba Watson in a way where it always felt like there were certain courses that Cameron Smith could really operate on, but it never felt like he was going to win a golf tournament at Oakmont, or it never felt like he was going to win necessarily a golf tournament at like Quail Hollow, great PGA Tour venue. So I'm putting him at number 9. We've got our top 2 spots. The number 1 in this list has been saved. It's reserved.
You're saving it.
Yeah, it's like one of the parking spots out front. It's reserved. Number 2, I don't know who you're going to say, so we could get a wild list here.
Well, our second to last is probably going to be your first.
I'm going to start writing it.
Phil Mickelson.
Phil Mickelson.
But you don't miss the photo. This was chosen specifically.
Wow, on the drums. You know, I think one of the underrated things about Phil is how much Tiger sort of stole his thunder. Phil was the Luke Clanton on steroids of his era. He won on tour as an amateur. He was the next Nicklaus. That was all the chatter. And then a couple of years later, a guy comes and he was, already winning before Tiger got there. And then Tiger comes through and just sort of eats his lunch. And Phil had an unbelievable career. I definitely feel comfortable saying top 15, probably a top 10 career of all time.
I agree.
6 major championships, oldest player to ever win a major. He was in the top 50 in the world for like 20-something years, played a gazillion Ryder Cups in a row. Unbelievable that he never got to number 1 in the world. Incredible. So he is the all-time number 2, Phil Mickelson. A solid, surefire, no doubt. He won 43 states in the Electoral College in this vote. Phil Mickelson, number 1.
I got to say, he also sort of defined getting the monkey off your back for me. Like when he won that first Masters, he went from definitively being like the best player who never won a major to very quickly then 5-time, I guess.
He won them in bulk, and he won his first one when he was 34. So, Scotty still has 6 years until he gets to that age. But that was a little bit of a different era.
And to your point, too, until I read Alan's book, I didn't realize, how much of a prodigy Phil was.
Phil was, dude.
Always.
Phil was... He was Tiger. He was like Tiger, and then Tiger came through and was Tiger.
Tough. Okay, we got another legend that we're going to round up.
Number two.
Okay, so
we have Bubba Watson, number 10, Cameron Smith, number 9, Hideki Matsuyama, number 8, Sergio Garcia, number 7, Davis Love, number 6, Colin Montgomery, number 5, Colin Morikawa, number 4, Xander Schauffele, number 3, Phil Mickelson, number 1, which leads only 1 spot, and that is number 2.
I'm happy with where this man's aura places him at number 2, so that makes sense. Jose Maria Olazabal.
I mispronounced his name in a video one time. Remember that?
Olazabal?
I called him Olazabal because...
Yeah, but when you do that, people are like, oh shit, is that the way you're supposed to say it?
Because I got it mixed up with Pablo Larrazabal. So that's a different golfer. I'm surprised he got to number 2 in the world. All-time short gamer. One of the best short games of all time. Go watch those. He won 2 Masters, I believe. Go watch those from the early 90s. He was a slow golfer. But his short game around Augusta was something to behold. I'm not, again, I find myself being like, where would I put him if it wasn't a blind ranking? But it is a blind ranking. And I feel good about this list.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel good about this list. So we're going to start at number 10, Bubba, Cameron Smith, number 9, Hideki, number 8, Sergio, number 7, DL3, number 6, Montgomery, number 5, Colin Morikawa, number 4, Xander Schauffele, number 3, Jose Maria Olazabal, not Larrazabal, not Olazabal, Olazabal, Jose Maria Olazabal, number 2, and Phil Mickelson.
I think out of the 3 times we've done this is the first time that I wouldn't have a note. at all.
I've got one note in my head, but I'm gonna leave it.
I got to do a better job of making this challenging, I think.
No, this was great.
You're doing too well at getting.
What are you talking about? This was a great list.
I got to shake you up a bit.
I couldn't disagree more. Okay, quick break right now from the tour talk for a second, because if you're into golf podcasts and you're watching and/or listening to this, so I suspect you are, I got a new one called Invested in the Game. It's an original podcast from Charles Schwab. They just had the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial. When I heard this, I was like, wait, Schwab, the investing guys? Why are they doing a golf podcast? It's a fair question. Turns out they're already doing 5 other podcasts, which, as expected, are in the market and investing space. All solid listens, but this new one, it's a little different. They wanted to branch out, get into the personal passions of their clients, because even the most hardcore investors have lives outside of trading platforms and balance sheets. And one of those passions is golf, big time. Golf has always been near and dear to Schwab and their clients. Schwab has supported the game for years through events, promotions, and sponsorships at both the professional and collegiate level. And now they're telling the stories behind the game, the stories of people who have poured their time, energy, money, and their hearts into golf. The stories that remind us why we all keep coming back despite the snap hooks, flubs, and 3-putts. You'll hear guests like Andy Johnson from Fried Egg Golf and Dottie Pepper from CBS. Again, it's called Invested in the Game from Charles Schwab. Check it out at schwab.com/thegame or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, guys, dog of the week. Easy one. This came across my desk on Monday. Our dog of the week is Mark Dole. So Mark Dole
Nothing dull about this.
He was playing in the U.S. Floorball Championship, which was won by 2 kids, 2 juniors. I don't have their names, but at Plainfield in New Jersey. Great golf course.
Yeah.
So the format of this event is it's 2 players best ball. Mark Dole caddies at Streamsong, which is an awesome place, and his partner, Chip Brook. They advance through stroke play. They win the round of 32 match. Then Brooks has to leave before the round of 16 match for a kid's graduation, which I'm going to hit the honesty button here. It's a bullshit excuse.
I agree. I would hit the honesty button too. I would never miss it for that. It's
it's a graduate. We're not talking like birth of a. Take a freaking cell phone video, man. You're in the round of 16. You're in the round. Okay, either
We're
go.
congratulating you for graduating high school.
Yeah.
How about the Elite 8 of this tournament?
You know what I'm saying? And you either gotta say I'm out. I gotta go to this graduation. I can't play, or screw the graduation. But you can't do it both ways. But you know what, Mark Dole. He said, let's figure it out when we come to it. Anyway, Dole played on his own in the round of 16, and he won. 1-on-2. He won the match to advance to the quarterfinal. He shot 3 under on his own ball to get to the quarters. First player ever to win as a solo in the 4-ball. He got to the quarters, lost on the 18th hole, so he almost got to the semis himself. So Mark Dole, our dog of the week. That's dog mentality. You have your partner forsake you for a graduation, which is, some would say, symptomatic of the participation trophy epidemic. Oh, graduated. Oh. I'm just not buying it. I'm just not buying that. But Mark Dole, dog of the week, 1 versus 2, dog mentality.
You know what I thought when I first saw that? I wondered if he got to play 2 balls. You know what I mean?
No,
like unfortunately, that'd be sick. Ball, right?
But then everyone would just get the better play. Just John Rahm would just win the 4-ball.
When you say he shot 3 under on his own ball, I was like, well, what did he shoot on his partner's ball?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That is true. But Mark Dole, dog of the week, gifts in the mail. Gift is in the mail, Mark Dole, and I know it's going to Streamsong because that's where he caddies. I love that place. I've been there like 3 times. Very strange.
Hand deliver it.
Very strange hotel. Have you been to Streamsong?
No.
Amazing golf courses. They got the black, the blue, and the red. And they have the chain, which is a par 3 course. Very strange hotel. It's like it's in the middle of nowhere in Florida. It's like between Tampa and Orlando, and the golf is amazing. And you're expecting like go to one of these golf resorts like Little Casitas. It's like a Stockholm Marriott that they just dropped in the middle of Florida. It's like Scandinavian design with like it's just a strange industrialist building that you wouldn't expect to see there.
It doesn't want to make you think too much. You got to be in golf mode.
I guess so.
You know?
I guess so. It is a really fun place, though. All right. We're going to finish with chirps from the gallery, as we always do. I loved this about Oakmont. So Oakmont has undergone a renovation. Gil Hanse has got in there and does what Gil Hanse does. So there's Oakmont on the left, and then it's just Mont on the right because they lost all of their oaks. Look at how many trees they got rid of.
That is not the Oakmont I grew up fetishizing.
Yeah, because you're a Pittsburgh guy. When you think of Oakmont, you think of trees, right?
I think of trees, yeah. And rough really first, and speed, and all the things at a 10 out of 10. But
well, this is what's so great about when major championships go to courses that aren't really good PGA Tour venues like Quail Hollow. These guys haven't seen Oakmont since 2016. they haven't seen it when it's just Mont. So it'll be fun for them to. But yeah, I mean, for audio listeners, like you can just go and look at the show on YouTube, but there's no trees left where there used to be a lot of trees. And then Chris Powers had a little bit of a. He went to the. I wonder if he has like a meme file. Yeah, so there used to be a fuck ton of trees. It's the Shane Gillis meme of showing it to some chick being like, look at how many trees they took out. I've had this exact conversation with my wife so many times where I'll like show her, I'll be like, look at the picture of this golf course. She's like, it's a pretty golf course.
Daily, like with everything that we do.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, it looks like another golf course. And she'd be like, why are they getting rid of the trees? And be like, oh, there's this. And she'd be like, okay.
This guy just played his own ball. His partner went to graduation.
It was 1-2. It was 1-2 in U.S. football. And this, no one cares. This hat, you didn't like this hat.
Yeah, this epidemic is getting crazy. Now they're spelling the name of the course backwards.
Wait, on the course. I didn't even say it's courses Carmel.
Carmel, yeah, New Carmel, yeah, Lemrac. Lemrac.
I thought it was just like, one of those big hat letters. He just spelled it backwards.
They're starting to troll people now. They're like, you put like, I'm a pedophile on that hat.
Put poop on the hat.
Yeah, put poop on it.
And people are going to buy it. And I think that's unfair to Barstool.
I think so too. I don't think that Barstool has done, I'll say this, they have done way more good for golf than they have anything like this, right? Like say what you want about their like tone, or you're too mature for them, like whatever. But like they're actually, just while we have this moment, like if people ask me like when did golf change, I think it's when like Barstool started covering golf, because guys that were our age, like right out of college,
they had a home for it.
Yeah, we wanted to play like Red Solo Cup golf, not like transfusion golf, or I guess what transfusion golf became. I'm on a soapbox now. Leave Barstool alone. Leave these hats alone. Please stop buying them, because they will keep making them until you stop buying.
I actually didn't realize that it was just the name of the golf course spelled backwards. So I'm gonna get.
They're running out of things to do.
I'm gonna get a Brentwood hat that says Do
Twin.
Trent. Yeah. And
when someone asks you, dude, it's Brentwood. You gotta understand.
Yeah, you just gotta know. No bueno. Ben Griffin was up and Adam tweeting this morning. We got a little update. I remember when he said another one with the DJ Khaled. That's a cool feeling.
I like the sauce he's playing with.
I like the player. Like this would be a tweet. This is probably one of the gazillion reasons why I am not on the PGA Tour. As I'm walking up the 18th hole, I'm thinking about what my tweet's gonna be.
What's it gonna be?
Yeah, because you got an unbelievable microscope on you, and that first tweet post win's gonna bang. And most guys go with like, oh, this has meant so much to me. I'm worked so hard for this. I would do a meme like that.
CP's probably thinking like, what meme in my library can I apply to?
Yes, exactly. Colin Morikawa. This was also early in the week. He famously dropped the trophy. And then Scotty did the same thing. Why is that thing not just glued on?
Well, because once it falls off once, like you think it's iconic enough, you realize that the lid comes off. Like after Colin does it.
Yeah, someone's got to.
He started to lift it. I was like, oh, he's going to do it too.
Someone's got to tell that maybe the new head of the PGA of America's got to be like, hey man, the thing's going to fall off.
Lid comes off. It's 3 words. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, it falls off. This was a couple stuff that happened really this morning. Nuclear Golf tweeted. This is an Eamon Lynch story in Golf Week. That the LIV Golf League has told its players that contract renewals will not include large upfront payments that were given upon initially signing. Dustin Johnson's contract expires this year. Brooks Bryson expire next year, and Rahm is locked up longer term. This checks out with what Alan has been saying on our show. They've got some contracts coming up, and I think one of the reasons why Tom McKibben was kind of their flagship signing this offseason was for this reason. They paid a lot of guys a lot of money to take a really big risk and jump into the unknown. It's no longer the unknown. Mm-hmm. It's no longer like take a risk with us, and it's like there's been 4 years of track record and of evidence. You know what you're getting now. So yeah, we'll see.
They need that Bryan Bros money. They're gonna save up.
I think Bryan. I said it before. The more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense. We're gonna finish with a spicy one from Lucas Glover. He's got a real spicy streak, and I like it. He was talking about testing drivers, and this was a topic of conversation last week at the PGA because Rory's driver failed. Apparently, Scotty's also failed. Lucas Glover said that most pros find ways to get around driver testing. Here's the quote. I've been trying to think all morning and all day about how to say this without sounding like it's going to sound, but most guys don't give them their real driver anyway. They give them their backup just in case. No, it's true. And the testing is the way it is. Why? And again, I know a lot of guys, they keep 2 drivers in their bag just in case. Hey, oh yeah, it's this one. It's this one right here. Yeah, do this one. Test this one. That's spicy.
That is spicy.
That is basically accusing your peers of cheating.
Cheating, yeah.
That's what that is. And Scotty went the other way. He said, why don't you leave it to us, right? Like every other rule, you're in charge of making sure that you follow. You know, there is an easy solve here, which is have a official on the first tee. You don't need them on every tee, on the first tee and the 10th tee with the device. You get there 10 minutes for your tee time. Your caddy your agent has a backup in case it fails, and you test the driver. And if it passes, then you hand him the driver and you watch to make sure that that's the driver that he puts in play.
Do you know what that test entails?
Yes. I saw it at Titleist Performance Institute. They have a driver and they have basically like a pendulum, and they do the pendulum and it gives a score. And if the score is above or below a certain threshold, I don't know what the threshold is, it's deemed non-conforming. I think it takes like 5 seconds.
That could become a fun ceremonial part of the first tee. It's like the gong goes, it's like, it passed.
Yeah, it passed. Woo, no, that was very, Lucas Glover is basically saying that all the other guys are
they found a way around it.
If they're not cheating, they're exposing a loophole, which would fly in the face of this game of honor. So
we thought it was a good idea that Scotty came up with that to say, like, make it another part of the honor of the game.
Yeah.
Now
it seems like that'll be changed. That'll be something that'll be changed. They're going to have to test every driver every week. And it's not that difficult to do. It's really not. All right, we're going to leave you with our clip of the week. And this was actually concerning to me. It's you're going to see the clip in a second. It's Scotty Scheffler stumbling with the ankles. I've thought about this for a long time. We talk a lot about how, guys with side bend or, how's Joaquin Neiman's swing going to age. Are we just going to assume that Scotty's got it down with the shuffle? Because a lot of the times he looks downright off balance. And this one, I don't know. I think
you showed non-golfers his swing for the first time. The first thing they'll say is he's going to hurt his ankle. And we're all like, whatever, he can do it.
And that's what all the comments are like. I'm worried about this guy's Achilles and his ankle. Anyways, we will see you guys next week on Day on Golf. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you to everyone who allows us to do stupid shit like talk about golf for an hour and 50 minutes. But we're going to leave you with this clip. Join us next week. Subscribe, like. We'll see you next week, Golf Sickos. And hopefully Scotty's got this down, because in this clip, it doesn't look like he does.